This is Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I am talking to Cynthia Marie Brewer. And Cynthia, why don't you give yourself your own introduction, since we're just meeting right now, and I will basically sit back and listen to you tell your story.
Okay, I'll give you the precipice of it. My name is Cynthia Marie Brewer. I was born in Long Beach, California on August 2nd, 1964. I was the person that was taken to do the Human Genome Project that turned into the DNA sequencing and the gene banks from which all of society is being registered under. The patents held by it were held by the Secretary, or are held by the Secretary of Defense, William Cohen, and another individual that was the head of Harvard Law School. Last name is Boyer. And it's running 2/3 of the world's economy, so I find it to be quite pertinent to what is happening here and the future of humanity.
Okay, you say you were the person sequenced, whose genes were sequenced, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and you were the one selected. So was this a voluntary situation?
No, there was no noticed informed consent whatsoever. I was told that I had cancer and I had to go in to get a tumor removed from my hip. Some of this is hearsay, and some of it is, the hearsay seems to be documented by all the facts that surround the matter. But on the same token, parts of it is things that I have been told. I was asleep during what happened. So, well, actually I died and came back, to be more precise.
Okay, and let me say that today is Tuesday, July 12th, 2011. Let me also say that. Okay, well, when you're saying, though, that you were selected, how were you selected? Do you know that?
My understanding is that it was through interplanetary trading off of the trade pact with the Eisenhower administration. It was done through the Joint Trade Commission, and the ISO was involved, which is the International Standards Organization that does the barcoding. And it was world government that came together at the Carnegie Mellon Peace Palace. This is important, Teresa. At the Carnegie Mellon Peace Palace, and all of the patents were passed out through all of the multi-level institutions, through the Uniprot Consortium, which is where the origin of the DNA sequencing and the gene banks were held. They were also held by J.P. Morgan and Chase and Goldman and Sachs and all of the major banking industries. And that is why 2/3 of the world's economy is running off of those patents.
Okay, the patent for gene sequencing?
It was more than that. To back up a little bit and give you an idea as to what happened and why it happened, I will have to tell you a part that sounds crazy, but it is an actual fact. What they did is they wanted to know what portions of DNA controlled what portions in the human genome. So they took my DNA and they spliced multiple pieces and parts of different animals to different sections within the DNA. And they created a biologically functional chimera. It was taken out in 1997, and it had basically, it was a chimera with different animal pieces and parts connected to it. It was blind and it was deaf, but it was a living, breathing, biologically functional chimera.
What do you mean it was taken out?
I have an incision. They amputated the back part of my right butt cheek. I was used as a host for gestation for this chimera. And it was supposed to grow attached to the intestinal wall in the mesentery. And as a surprise to everybody, it popped up attached to my sciatic nerve in my right hip. And it was about 8 pounds, and it consumed my whole leg and buttocks, is my understanding.
Okay, well, how did you find out about this?
Um, Colleges and universities who are well studied in what is going on and what has transpired notified me and sent me the information, and it matched to a T as to what my scenario had happened to me. The types of things that happened in the hospital, including multiple murder attempts, actually successes, but I kept coming back. I, for some reason, could not leave my body and stay there. I had to keep coming back until my purpose is completed here. That part sounds crazy, but it happened. Basically, what they have done is I have some sort of genetic deviations or variations that the average person doesn't have. It goes back to the Byzantium tribe. I am of the order of Saint Joachim, which is the Virgin Mary's father. And I have archaic DNA, what they call junk DNA, that tends to have immunities to things that the normal average person does not have from Cro-Magnon man, from the changes of man. What happened was they had passed out all the patents for all of the multi-level institutions, including the colleges and universities, and they had given me the plague, they had given me typhoid and AIDS and every other disease known to wipe out societies, and they held the patents for them. And when I kept waking up, they got into a bunch of fights because of the fact that it was one cure for all diseases. I have what they call a death receptor cell. It's created in the thymus, and it's called the T32 cell. For any of you that are studied in biology, this is where it came from. What I do is when I get a toxic invasion to my body, I fall asleep and my cells block everything until I pee it out and I wake back up again.
Okay, but from the sound of it, first of all, you went in for, I guess, some kind of routine cancer investigation?
Correct. They said that I had a tumor in my right hip, and
Okay.
it was
And
it was the Chimera.
And at that time, I don't understand how you submitted to all these tests, so to speak.
Well, they gave me an MRI, and I could see that there was a huge mass in my leg and buttocks that needed to be removed. So I went in for a surgery to get it removed.
Okay,
voluntarily.
what year was that?
That was 1997.
Okay.
And that's when it came out in the news media as Dolly the sheep. And what they had done is they had created the Chimera. I went through 4 surgeries in that year, from basically knee to waist, attached to the sciatic nerve, so they skeletonized horrific surgeries. 4 surgeries in 1 year, and that's when they came out with the cloning, etc. The clones came out as Dolly the sheep, and that was no sheep, that was me bloody on the table. And those clones is under, and the DNA sequencing and all the genealogy and patenting is under the name of Bree, B-R-E. Now, that's the first 3 letters of my last name. Now, I'm going to tell you, when you research this, there is a lot of plausible deniability going on here. And the plausible deniability is out there with misinformation, but you can find the truth.
Okay, so you believe, for some reason, that you're the only one this happened to?
No, absolutely not. I'm the first one it happened to. There's been millions that have followed in my footsteps. They're killing people all the time through the sinister use of my DNA. And if you go onto any gene card or website, you will find all the patents under the name of Bree. And they are stressed, they are sliced, they are diced, they are irradiated, they are under every type of conceivable stress that you can possibly put on it. They're diseased. They're all over the place. And that became the, what do you call it, the primary DNA that was used. I understand
why is it that you believe that yours was primary? Just out of
because they did the DNA sequencing off of my blood, and it was
How
a
do you
world.
know that?
You can check my DNA and no. I've been given all of the information. Furthermore, while I was in the hospital, I called 911 from my hospital bed because I knew that they were trying to kill me. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it, that there was beyond anything that has to do with reasonable duty of care and responsibility for me in there. Given my own room, nobody would come in to service me or work with me or anything. In hindsight, it's because I was given those diseases. I was they even at the end of it tried to murder me with apoptic shots, which is the Dr. Kevorkian death shot. And I again fell asleep until it passed out of my body and woke back up. They did that to me 2 times, and that is in the medical records. And believe me, I know they were doing me wrong. Okay?
Okay.
I couldn't be any more clear.
Okay. Do you have a website?
No, I do not.
Okay. And this information you're giving me at this time, where else has it gone out?
I don't know where all it has gone. I have sent thousands and thousands of letters to people, and it falls on deaf ears and people that don't understand what it is that I'm saying. This happened in '97. We're considerably further along at this point. And because of that, the truth always emerges. And there's enough information and documentation out there that you can find this. If you go and look into some of the medical records, which are very difficult to understand, written in code beyond anything you can imagine, you will find that what I'm telling you under Bree is accurate. I did not know that this happened to me until 2008, when Lehman Brothers fell, or AIG fell, and Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. That's when I was informed by whatever forces hacked my computer as to the full ramifications of what happened to me.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by whoever? How was a computer hack? How did you get the information via computer hack?
Oh, they hack your computer. I don't know if you're aware of this, but all computers have polarity issues in them where they can do reverse spying, windows into your house.
Sure, but
okay.
But so how did you? It still doesn't explain how you would have found out this kind of detailed information about your being used in a genome project for.
The colleges and universities all study me. They think it's a hell of a phenomenon. And while I was...
How do you know that, though?
There is no possible way to confirm what I saw, other than the fact that if you dig up all the information, and you go to the Securities and Exchange Commission, all the records that were damaged in the trade towers and some other stuff, those were the toxic security interests of capital injections of other people that have followed me. It's a preponderance of evidence. It's like saying, prove God exists.
Well, no, I mean, if you're saying that you were used in a genome project, then there would be a paper trail, and you're saying you found out in 2008. Then how did you find out? I'm still not clear. They hacked into your computer. That usually it goes the other way. They don't give you information when they hack into your computer. They take it. So why are you saying you found out in 2008? It doesn't follow.
Okay. There is a political movement of people that are outraged by what happened to me. Our problem is they can't disclose who and what they are for fear of dying of natural causes. The whole subject matter is around dying of natural causes in the Human Genome Project and what they can do to terminate your life. And that is the problem with trying to deal with this. I've had multiple confirmations from many different people, including hospitals, that know who I am and what happened to me.
Okay, and do you have those documents?
No, I do not. What I do have is the Securities Exchange documents that have been taken off of the internet because of national security risks. Understand that the head of, or an advisor to Homeland Security was William Cohen. He was the patent holder. That makes him a pretty powerful person. The exchange of securities, which I do have hard copies in a safe location of, went predominantly from Cynthia Marie Brewer over to Alan Greenspan and some other key people. Those documents have disappeared from the internet. I have a lot of stuff that was documented that has disappeared from access. What I did not know when they came over and channeled the whole thing to me.
What do you mean they came over and channeled the whole thing to you? Who's that?
Okay, what they do is they call it a live wire. What a live wire is they dig up the street in front of your house. They used to. They don't have to anymore. And they dig up the street in front of your house. I moved 5 times in 1 year, and they happened to dig up the street and shut down the phones in front of my house all 5 times. That's pretty strong evidence. What they do is they hack into your computer, and nothing is retained on a hard drive because it's a live wire that goes directly to you. And they played many scenarios, in a couple hours worth of scenarios and information that totally rang true. All of my environment and my surroundings and what had happened to me could not have been any more clearly documented.
So I don't understand. You're saying they created a live wire, like broadcast to you on your computer what had happened to you. Why would they bother?
Because I have a purpose here, and a lot of people know it.
Yeah, but that doesn't make sense. You're talking about your enemies would give you information. That does
No, I'm
not make
not.
sense.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Who's to say everybody's my enemy?
Well, assuming the people who are digging up the street in front of your house and broadcasting to you are people that are on a pretty high level and have access to a technology and also information that would indicate that they are the ones who did the deed, right?
Just because you're under a corporate umbrella does not make all of the people scum.
So you're saying these people that dug up the street in front of your house and broadcast to your computer were your friends?
No. I'm saying there was friend and foe. I would sit in front of my computer, one person would wipe out my files, the next person would repair it, the next person would wipe it out, the next one would repair it. There is a war going on between good and evil, and I'm stuck in the middle of it. When they agreed to do the Human Genome Project, the whole way that they got the world's agreement and approval was because it was supposed to do good for everybody. They were supposed to come up with all of the cures for medical research and everything else. If you have breast cancer, they went to BRCA1 and BRCA2. Those are my genes. Okay, that was what the good was supposed to come of it. But for every good, there's an equal and opposite effect. So what you have is you have a bunch of people that are trying to protect security interests that are snakes. You also have a bunch of people that were involved in the most heinous crimes known to man that there ever was. And you have people that are sitting in positions of power that cannot disclose who they are or they won't be there.
Right. Okay. Well, you don't know anything about Project Camelot, and I'm well aware of that side of the story. But what I'm trying to ascertain in talking to you is whether or not you are you're not delusional in essence, and whether or not this information is has a sort of a through line of logic of any kind. And,
absolutely, it does.
And
as a matter of fact, when I sit on a computer, I can't prove it to you because they're doing it behind everybody's knowledge. Everybody now knows about tracking chips. When I first told them about my tracking chip, everybody called me crazy. When I first told them about the DNA sequencing, everybody called me crazy. I've been called crazy for years. And this is where enough revelation has occurred and transpired to the point that I am no longer being called crazy, and I'm getting acknowledgement and validation from many people.
Okay.
And understand that what's happened is that when they do this, it's classified classified information, and it's under national security. And anybody that's talking about it ends up with a real problem on their hands. So what I have is a bunch of people that aren't fully disclosing, but trying to get the information out to the best of their ability without getting killed. One of the people they got was Michael Crichton. He wrote that book Next.
Right.
That book was highly about, a portion of it was about what had happened to me. It was done at UCLA in Westwood, Santa Monica. And I lived in Long Beach. It's the Brewer stem cell gene and clone line. That's me. The plausible deniability. Understand that these people took down the trade towers to cover it up, for God's sake. There is no limit to what they will do to deny what I am telling you as fact. And
Okay, why would they take, no, I hear what you're saying. Why would they take down the center
because that's where
towers?
all the securities documents were. They even wrote in the SEC securities documents not to give me my Social Security disability after collecting for it for 20 years involuntarily. They left me in bed, invalid, for 2 years without so much as a meal.
Okay, well, at the moment, I appreciate that, but what I have to sort of, if you don't mind, when I ask you a question, I kind of have to have you answer the question so that we can kind of make progress here, because otherwise people listening to this will appreciate that you believe your own story and that you've got, enough evidence that has convinced you of it. But at this moment,
that's what we have to move on to, is because the plausible deniability was done.
I understand.
Because of,
we're used to. Okay. We are used to the notion of plausible deniability in Camelot, so that's not a big shock that they would be employing that. But what I need to do is I need to find out why you think whatever it is you think, so that we can follow some kind of through line. And you're saying that you think that the trade towers, for example, were taken down to hide this information, to hide securities that were based on what?
On the blood of the saints, to be exact.
Okay, the blood, because you feel that you're part of the Jesus and Mary bloodline. There are lots of people that are part of that.
There is a lot of people, and notice how they're all dying and getting diseases.
Well, no, I don't know about that.
Let's get to where what you're doing is stumbling me on plausible deniability, and yes, they are masters at it. And basically,
I just want a clear through line. What I would like you to do is explain why it is you think they would have taken down the trade towers, which were taken down for various reasons, but that is not one of them, to my knowledge. But I'm perfectly willing to entertain the notion that it is one of them. I'm just trying to get the logic behind it. So, in what way would that have facilitated something for them?
That's where the securities documents were located. I had possession.
Why don't they just throw them in a trash can somewhere? I mean, it doesn't make sense. What you're talking? What are you saying here? I mean, what is the point?
Okay, let me start over. This is the largest case in documented human history.
Okay, where can you direct me to the case files?
They're government classified. You're going to have a real difficult time getting them.
Okay,
I can tell you this. Here's my proof.
You wouldn't know it's the largest if you haven't seen all the cases in the world. Okay.
Okay, here's my proof. My DNA is my proof. It doesn't get any cleaner than that.
Well, I'm not in a position to have your DNA analyzed right now. So what I'm trying to do is take your testimony and see where this makes sense. So you believe that you were the first person that was DNA sequenced. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you believe this because your name has the first 3 letters of the same as Dolly the sheep that was announced publicly?
That's one of about 1 million reasons.
Okay.
And we have to get on to the evidence to be able to tell you why it's... The only way you could prove it is to take my DNA. It was government classified. Okay.
So what other evidence do you have besides that? Because saying that your computer was, what had a through line and that you had friends in high places who dug up the street and sent you information, that stretches the lines of
No, I did not say that.
Well, it has to.
I did not say that.
Friends in lower high places, however you want to read it, they're sending you information. They're trying to do you a favor, are they not?
Some of them, they tried to pay me off, is what they did. The attempt was through the Bush administration to pay me off.
Okay, there's a lot easier way to give you information than digging up the street. So if they dug up the street, I would buy it that they're taking information. I would not buy it that they're giving you information.
Well, I'm sorry. Then we have a disagreement over what happened.
Okay, fine. So at this point, though, what I guess what I need is, I think you have something legitimate here. Don't get me wrong. It's just that in the current way that you're telling the story, and maybe have you ever tried to write it up?
Many times.
Okay, and have you been successful at all?
How can one person take the time to write up the story of the largest documented case in human history?
Well, if it concerns you, it can easily be done. And I'm not sure that it is the largest case in human history. I think making a statement like that just, kind of makes you more suspect. And I don't think that helps you. I think that what we need
here's what
is
you need.
for you to
Here's
talk.
what you need. Here's what you need. We will postpone talks until you go get confirmation from 2 other witnesses. You need the witnesses.
Okay.
You need 2 other witnesses.
There's no reason to postpone them. I actually just need a little bit more sort of down-to-earth information from you.
Well, my word is my bond, and if you don't think that I have validity, find out from another source.
Okay,
the main thing is getting the story out.
I think you do have validity, but I think that what you've told me so far isn't really helping. It's simply that you were brought into a hospital for some kind of supposed hip cancer. You believe your DNA was then sequenced because somebody told you that happened, right?
That's not all. Every time I've been to the doctor, they know exactly who I am. Psychiatrists have admitted who I am.
Okay, do you know that
they
Camelot
will admit
gets
it, but nobody will do it unless it's behind closed doors.
But we get a lot of people like that. Look, there have been people. I mean, it is important that you kind of know something about Camelot so that you understand the starting point that we're coming from here. We get tons of people out there who believe they are the chosen ones, who've got the right blood, who've got this, who've got that going on, who have been being tracked by the government, being watched in every which way, et cetera,
and they
et cetera.
And they are.
And they are, exactly. But the point is why specifically is this a unique story?
Because I was the one that they did the DNA sequencing on, which started the gene banks. That started all of the biotech industry.
Okay. Do you realize that, well, from our point of view, they would have been doing this long before they ever brought you in the hospital? What hits the news
yes and no.
They completed,
this is significant. They never had the DNA genome sequencing until they did this experiment on me.
And you know this because what? Of a newspaper article?
You can go to any country where there's not a media blackout and they're not in control of it and find out.
Okay, well, I travel a lot, but I can tell you this much, that they've been working on things of this nature from back in the time of the Nazis.
Oh, absolutely. Well, actually, it goes back to Greek and...
Well, of course, but...
It goes way back.
But in terms of the modern age, as we know it, that we can agree upon.
Here's why I was picked, and you can find this online any second of the moment, okay?
Okay, I'm online right now.
Human Prototype 5001, Taxonomy ID 9606. You will be able to hyperlink, or breed, okay? You will be able to hyperlink into over 600 billion patents, okay? That's the initial patent that started the whole thing. And I can tell you the patent number. As a matter of fact, I sent it to you. And it was held by Cohen and Boyer.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, I see this here.
Okay. And basically what all of the monetary value on currency is of the world is held by the Whore of Babylon, and it's the blood of the saints, as the Bible predicts. The U.S. patent number granted to Stanley Cohen and Herbert Boyer on December 2nd, 1980, entitled Process for producing biologically functional molecular chimeras.
Okay, so this is what's in the public domain. I'm just making the point that what you're talking about is something that would have been in the private domain.
Actually, it was in the public domain. I don't know where it stands anymore because they shipped everything around for plausible deniability. What I can find one day is not there the next, and vice versa.
I understand that, but that's not the point I'm making. But it may be that you don't want to look beyond that point. I understand that you want to consider yourself the first person whose DNA was sequenced. I'm simply saying that from the point of view of Project Camelot, you are not the first. Okay, there's no way. They've been doing this long before you were ever even born. So other people,
not the full human sequencing.
Yes, the full human sequencing. Okay. What you're talking about is what is in the scientific, what we would call the matrix,
Understood.
the mainstream.
I understand that.
We look at things very differently than most, and that's why you were sent to us. Okay. But I appreciate what you're saying in terms of the public scientific community. I do.
Yes,
understand.
and it was the Academy of Science,
Right.
and basically because there was actually, what I believe it may be more of is that they involved the ISO, or the International Standards Organization, which caused the barcodes to be applied to all of it.
Okay.
As a commodity.
Fine, but that's just paperwork.
Well, it became what was hidden before became public by virtue of changing the patent laws. And now that the patent law, and it was the second biotech patent. The first one was the superbug from the Exxon Valdez. And that's how the camel got his nose in the tent. Then the second one was granted, thinking that it was so off the wall and so out there that nobody would actually consider doing it, and it was done to me.
Okay, well, at any rate, sequencing the DNA is considered to be a positive thing from the point of view of the scientific community and for supposedly curing disease, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
It's probably a double-edged sword, you would agree.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So it can be used for a negative purpose or a positive purpose.
Correct.
Okay.
And unfortunately what happened is that the people that got a hold of it rose to a position of, they were already in positions of power. But they utilized it to usurp all of the resources and the people of this planet.
Okay, but that's a very general statement. What are you talking about?
Well, if I hold a patent for breast cancer and you get breast cancer, I sell you the remedy. So if I give you breast cancer, you have to cough up all of your assets, don't you?
Okay, so what are you saying? So patents for disease are linked to your DNA?
Absolutely.
Well, loosely speaking, but just because they use your DNA doesn't. I mean, I'm not sure where are you going with this. Like, what is it? What is it? Are you asking for? Do you want to be known? Because everyone knows that they're linking. That DNA and is being used for to gene sequencing is being used to do basically to create various cures.
Let me tell you the next step of it, okay? There's people registered under OPSI, or Office of Public Sector Information, at the United Kingdom. Predominantly hospitals, multi-level institutions such as colleges and universities.
Right.
They have made it now so that to graduate with a doctorate, you create a disease and you patent the remedy. And that's how you become wealthy as a doctor. And they do that off of the DNA, they do that out of a gene bank. And they do a human takings. Okay, number one on the stock market is biotech. Number two is pharmacopoeia. Number three...
But I mean, this is it. I mean, what you're doing is you're leaping sort of ahead and kind of throwing everything into the same bin. And whereas... Yes, there is
I would say more, I'm trying to give you a table of contents so that I can get some continuity of where this is going.
Okay,
and I can't just give you a bottom line.
No, where is it going in your view?
That's what I'm trying to accomplish here. I'm trying to establish the areas in which it goes. You can't, you have to have a table of contents to be able to understand where it's going.
No, I can
And
understand where you're going with this in terms of talking about, the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry and how they use DNA in order to
no,
create
no, they're
medicines
using
and then
humans.
sell.
They're using humans as the commodity. That's the part you're missing.
Okay, how so?
Because the human being is the host for their biotech experiments.
Sure, of course.
Okay, so you're being sold and traded as pork bellies.
Well, I mean, this part is obvious in terms that people are being used or sacrificed
And that had to
for
do with
their.
that had to do with the initial patent that was done in the Human Genome Project. And the head of the Human Genome Project was Francis Collin. He's now head of the National Institute of Health.
Okay. Well,
Okay,
yeah.
there's so much information. It is impossible to give you a one-liner to make you understand or to justify what it is I'm saying. It's impossible.
Okay. Let me ask you this: is your family line documented?
I do not have copies of it right now. It is documented. I would have to go pick it up.
Okay.
The part that I do recall is that my great grandfather is Lord Nelson of the English Navy. That's the part that I know or great great grandfather, pardon me. Okay, and that's the part that I do recall because I met my grandmother Nelson and all the other things that went on there.
Okay. And you're aware that you have I don't know if it's your family, but the Brewer last name has a website, a
No,
family tree DNA
no,
information. Yeah, on
no.
the
I need to go get it. I need to go get it from
it's
the
online. All you have to
LDS.
do is do a search under Brewer.
Well, it's not just Brewer because it goes into it was both sides of my family. To be honest with you, I have spot checked it throughout the distance. I have not had the ability to sit down and confirm all that I'm saying, and it basically is coming from hearsay from the live wires that were given to me in their attempt to settle. There was a lot of people that felt very bad about where this went. This is not a one-way street where all people are evil.
Uh-huh.
This was supposed to be for the good of humanity, and it was taken and used in a sinister manner to make certain people rich, and it is in the Vatican archives. And when, as a matter of fact, the decision came from the Pope. Not himself. He stepped down, and they did it with the heads of states and large corporate leaders through motor voting to hide their identities. And if you go back in history, you'll read where the Pope stepped down, and you'll read where all of the changes at the Vatican transpired for that time frame to do the human takings.
Okay.
And
Well, yeah, I see where you're going with this, kind of loosely speaking, but at the moment, why are you coming forward right now?
I've been coming forward since the whole thing happened.
Okay, but
Nobody can.
why are
It's falling
you?
on deaf ears.
Yeah, okay, but why are you? What are you trying to achieve? Why are you speaking to me? Why are you doing this?
I want the end of the toxic security interests, and what that is doing presently today in the current market is the toxic security interests of human takings in the blood of the saints in the Bible is what they call it, is the economy right now. And by virtue of removing the toxic security interests, the stock market and currency is coming crashing down, and they call that the fall of Babylon. It was done through a series of trickery, lies, and deceptions
Sure.
that went on, including the putting of the roadmap known as the Bible, and the use of trickery, lies, and deceptions and miseducation to to train people into this and to fail to disclose it without actually failing to disclose it. It's hidden in plain sight.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I'm not sure at this moment. I mean, what have you done with this? I mean, you've known it since 2008, and then you've gone out and started talking about it. And have you made any progress at all?
That's not actually fully true. I found
didn't.
out in 2008, and I told some people, and they thought I was a crackpot, nuttier than hell. And as time has gone on, I've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt through the evidence that's involved, and after being told where to look, that it is actually and factually did occur. And at the time, nobody even believed that tracking chips were being put in me, for God's sake. I did not come out and tell everybody because I was really sick and tired of getting beat up. I have been trying to contact people. It's one of two ways. Either the person knows it to be true and fact and will not discuss it for fear of their own life and the lives of those around them, or it falls on deaf ears. Mm-hmm. There is no middle of the road. Okay, we know this. We know where we need to go. We know what we need to do to fix it. There is no middle of the road ground here. It's either you're crazy or silence, and they run. It's the most incredible thing you ever have. I've only had a few people fess up to me that they know.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay, I mean, it makes, I mean, what you're saying, it's not surprising. What might be sort of in question is the question about whether it is actually, you're the first one that was done in the public domain, so to speak, and why you would be coming forward and why you would have sort of it would have been an implant into your body and so on and so forth. Some of the storylines that you're talking about.
I'll tell you why. It's because I think that the future of humanity is on the line here. I think it's
okay, it is on the line, but in what way do you think it is on the line? For what purpose? How does this relate to what you're talking about?
Oh, well, they're doing human takings all over the place. That's what now let me go back to what I was trying to say a little bit earlier. Number one on the stock market is biotech. Number two is pharmacopoeia. Number three is prison stock. And number four is the housing market. The proceeds from my demise went to community development in the housing market. That's what Bree is. That's what Brewer C housing is. All of Hawaii, the whole agribusiness, etc.
Okay. Wait. That jump just, I'm not following you. What are you talking about?
That means that
first of all, you didn't die, but secondly, the proceeds from your demise, what are you talking about?
That was agreed on at the Geneva Convention and the Hague were all focused around this. Those people know.
Focused around what? What?
The Human Genome Project.
Okay. So at that point, how do you get from there to the housing industry?
Because they agreed, the people that wanted it to work for good agreed that it would go to the proceeds would go to community development and housing industry. The signatory for the human takings, which of course everything has been pretty much destroyed for plausible deniability, but there's enough still out there that you can't miss it. The signatory, his name was Richard Ellis of Grubb and Ellis. That's what Bree is. You also go over, they call it the plausible deniability for the housing, etc. All of Hawaii runs on this. I went over there to do a tort claim and found it there. It's C. Brewer and Brewer C. And they'll tell you it's a Charles Brewer. There is no Charles Brewer, in fact. Okay? It's plausible deniability where you look, but the evidence is overwhelming. Bree Properties, Bree Bank, all of those are proceeds from the Human Genome Project. And that was the part that was supposed to be the good. Okay? Some of the good did happen. But the sinister manner of taking over the planet is not a good thing. Basically, it went into military and the military trade and technology. That was where the interplanetary trade was happening. That's where HARP came into view. And all of these other horrible things that they wanted financing for, that's where they got it.
Okay, so what are you talking about when you say interplanetary? Are you talking about trading with the Greys?
That's hearsay. I understand that there is a pact with Eisenhower, the trading with the Greys, because we refused to do the Nordic trading. That's for development of our oh, what did they want to bring us? Spiritual development. Because they refused to do that and decided on the pact with the Greys. This is hearsay here.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay? They traded for weapons of mass destruction, military
Right.
technology.
Yes, I'm aware of that side of it, but you're saying they also.
Well, see, this is what I don't understand about my story.
Well, it makes
This is,
sense in terms. I mean, the Greys are all about basically genetically re-engineering a completely new race based on the human genome.
exactly. And here you have it. Wait a minute. That brings me to another point. Craig Venter of the Venter Institute, one of the biotechs that sprung up over this, he just created the first human, or the first synthetic human or life form. And guess what he named it? Cynthia. And he will be sure to tell you immediately in the same sentence that it was because it was synthetic for plausible deniability.
Okay, what's the guy's name?
Craig Venter, Venter, I believe. You can look him up right on Wikipedia. You can look up Brie stem cell gene and clone lines. It's all out there.
Uh-huh.
It is running 2/3 of the world's economy. It's really easy to find it. But it's a secret as to where and how it came to being. Because what they did to me was the most heinous crime ever recorded in history.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Well, what they did to me, they took me in. It was brain and reproductive studies. They hooked me up to a brain monitor.
Yeah,
they raped me.
They've been doing this with a lot of people. I mean, the Greys also do this anyway.
Then they flipped me over on my side. They pulled a biologically living chimera out of my hip, and then they proceeded to put a bunch of clones in me, grow the clones, and use them in every single college and multi-level university in sinister manners to disease, stress, and destroy.
Okay, wait a minute.
DNA.
They put clones in you. What do you mean by that?
Well, they grew them in my leg. That's where Dolly the sheep came out. Hello, that was it.
What do you mean they grew them in your leg?
In my hip.
Why would they use you as a host?
My understanding, and this again is hearsay, is that because I have additional characteristics in my DNA, if you go online and you look up human prototype 5001, taxonomy ID 9606,
right,
you will find that I am Neanderthal.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Right.
Neanderthal is before the DNA splicing of the Cro-Magnon man. I come from the Byzantium tribe. I'm one of the remnants. The healing of the archivaic structure of the DNA, I have additional genes or compensations that cause me to be radiation resistant and resistant to all.
Well, why aren't you resistant to cancer if that's true?
Who said I'm not?
Well, you said you went in initially because you had cancer.
I went in being told I had cancer. I had a chimera in my hip.
Okay.
There's a big difference, okay? That's what I was told I had.
I see.
So that I would voluntarily go in and get a surgery to get it taken out. Well, then they claimed that they mishandled the tumor. This goes into small little details that aren't significant to the rest of the world. I have a million things that happened to me in the hospital that are beyond anything that you could ever call reasonable duty of care. They mishandled the tumor. There was a positive margin. Okay, you can't have a mishandled tumor. It's impossible. They cut you open and they dye it. It's impossible to mishandle a tumor. And they said that there was a positive margin that they needed to keep their eye on. Then it was supposed to take 10 years to grow, the same as the clones in the frogs and everything else. Understand, first of all, the Dolly the sheep came from a whole barnyard in Scotland where cloning is legal. And that she was one of, I don't know, hundreds of animals. Your prerequisite for being in the Roslin Institute was to be a clone. Okay? This is a total fallacy over when Dolly the sheep was born, etc., etc. And they used
Okay.
okay, that right there is one piece of undeniable evidence. It's your prerequisite to be there. They were cloning animals, the Watson and Crick thing, for years. It was just the human got cloned.
Yes,
So they
I
had
know
to
that.
come out with scientific information to be able to convey information to the scientists and the biggest discovery, blah, 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 blah. And it was not a sheep. Dolly was just the last cloned sheep of the Roslin Institute, where all of the animals are clones.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, okay, I guess we have sort of an overview here. What what I would suggest, first of all, though, is that you establish your own website and that you put a description of some kind of what you're talking about on there for people to
Here's
take
what
a
the
look at.
problem is. Here's what the problem is. I'm politically active. What I am doing right now is writing a tort claim to the Vatican to get those records released and to stop the toxic security instruments. And I think that that's more important, that I do something for humanity and the proactive instead of reverting back to tell a story that is already documented by all of the colleges and universities. It is futile for me to do something that has already been done. It just needs to be combined. And I know that for a fact that it is, or they couldn't have put it over the live wire for me. Somebody out there is watching it. Somebody out there does have it. And
Okay,
all I'm
but
trying to do is make it known to the public as to what's going on. You go in for a treatment at the hospital and they tell you you've got a heart problem that you never knew existed, and they give you a drug that causes the heart problem.
right, yeah,
Okay,
well, I have
you
no
know
doubt
that.
yeah,
Okay, that's happening.
yes,
That's happening everywhere.
right.
Okay, and here's the other part. How about this one? Under Francis Collin, head of the Human Genome Project, he's going to bring you none other than free health care with, this is the part nobody hears. Please open your ears. Patent protection. Okay? That's what it is. That's what the free health care is. It has nothing to do with anything other than creating a disease to patent it for somebody else's wealth. Okay? And the other part is that there's a section in there that I do not have possession of at this point that says to get your free health care, you have to have a microchip, which is the ISO
Right.
involved again.
Of course. Okay. Well, we understand that. So at this moment, though, I appreciate that you're going sort of in a legal direction with this tort claim. But frankly, why do you think that it's going to succeed in any way, since the courts are all in on it?
You do know that. Thank you. Don't make me prove that one. I'll tell you why I think it's going to succeed. Because, first of all, it's at a spiritual level. Second of all, because I have never stated my claim. The claim has to go in. And then they are in ecclesiastical supreme dishonor. Here's
What are
my
you talking
problem.
about there? I'm sorry. You've never stated your claim, and therefore, what does that mean? I'm sorry, I don't understand. Why are you saying that that's a basis for it going through?
Because the Vatican believes that they control the whole planet, all of the people on it, and all of the fauna and flora. They've written it in their papal bulls.
Okay, that doesn't surprise me, but
Okay.
So how does this follow then? So
Okay,
you make a claim.
I got pulled off track. I got pulled off track. I don't remember where I
You're saying
was.
you make a claim, you've got a tort with the Vatican. I ask you how you think it's going to go through. You tell me it's a spiritual question on the one hand, and that you have basically saying a good case on a spiritual level. But how the Vatican is anything but spiritual in my view.
It's beyond spiritual. It's beyond spiritual. I have the DNA. That's my claim.
All right, but why do you think the Vatican is going to listen to your claim? Is what I'm asking.
It doesn't much matter if they do or not. It's something that has to be done.
Okay. Well, I guess my point would be is,
I'm not even going to prove that point.
Okay. So,
It's too lengthy at this point.
well,
That
but
is
you
what I'm
came to,
working on right now. I'm
fine.
saying that I have a priority over turning backwards and becoming a pillar of salt as to going forward to do something in the positive.
Right, but you've
And all I'm
contacted
trying to do,
Camelot for some reason. You want to get the word out in the public, and basically doing this kind of an audio is maybe grazing the surface, and certainly we have enough of an audience that people will listen to this if I put it out there. But what I'm suggesting is once they listen, what do you want them to do?
oh, I want them to help me compile this so that I know what their needs are. Let me tell you what the real problem is here. There is no other managing authority of that caliber and magnitude that can handle 7 billion people and all the resources of the planet. That's why they did the ISO. And ultimately, I'm fearful that it's going to pull the trigger of the microchip, which is the mark of the beast.
Okay, fine, but what I'm saying is at the moment, how are people supposed to, in other words, you don't have a website, you don't have a place where people can interact with you, help build the community.
And I
When
don't
you
have
go to
time
the
to do it.
people, you're talking about a grassroots movement of sorts. You
And
have
I don't have
any,
time to do it. What I would have to count on is either them taking my word at face value, researching enough to be able to confirm what I'm saying, and then taking proactive measures to help the collective consciousness come to some sort of an agreement or compromise.
okay, fine. And do you want to give any kind of contact information for people?
Sure, they can contact me at my email address. They can contact me on Skype. You have both.
Well, no, then give it out because if I put this out there, it's going out there on audio.
Okay, my email is Cynthia, spelled CYNTHEION, Cynthia, at gmail.com. And my Skype address
I don't know if
is,
you want to give that out to the whole public. We have millions of listeners, so if they do listen, I hesitate. You might get
okay,
people
thank you.
contacting you in the
Thank
millions.
you.
So be prepared. Uh,
Okay.
there will be plenty of people that think that this is crazy, but there will also be plenty of people that will understand the seeds of truth in what you say and begin to want to investigate it. And there may
And
even
if,
be some people out there who are researchers in this sector and want to contact you with their research, et cetera, and maybe help you in your quest.
absolutely, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to go forward. What happened to me is it should never happen to another being again. I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to stop that from ever happening to any being again. And understand that my position here in this Vatican tort is that in the Bible it says that the number of man is 666. I got news for you. That's my number. Okay? And what that boils to, and it's also the number of all the Byzantium tribe. That's the people that were tortured and used in biotech in Guantanamo Bay. They were electrocuting them, they were x-raying them because we're disease and radiation resistant. And electricity is what they were using to conduct their experiments. And sulfur, fire and brimstone. Okay?
Okay.
So what they were doing, what that means is that in the Bible it says that he who has the number or the mark can participate in commerce. It does only give an account that you will be surrendering your soul to get the mark of the beast. It says nothing over using the number. And what that is that it's the number of man. So only man will be able to participate in commerce. And what this does to me is it causes me some distress over the fact that these reptilian races and fallen races, should I say, pardon that, fallen races, will not be able to participate in commerce anymore, and that's why it's going to pull the trigger. But there's going to be some races here that do not have the number of man that are here in an attempt to help and aid us through this. And I'm concerned with their well-being. Anybody that puts their life on the line to come do that, I do not want to inadvertently damage in some way, and I need to look into the cause and effect of my own actions. I'm sentient in being.
I appreciate
And what and here's what it boils down to. The reason that this is going to be instilled is because the fallen races lack the characteristics in their DNA that control the morals and ethics. The number of man 666 all has the morals and ethics gene. Now, what happens in that is that you get the mark of the beast if you don't have the morals and ethics, and it controls your morals and ethics, and that's why you can then participate in commerce. Get it?
Yeah, I do. I understand where you're going with this. I understand about the Neanderthal race and so on, to some degree. But at any rate, okay. Is there, you know, at this time, I think we should wrap this up. Is there anything else you want to add to this? And hopefully this recorded properly.
Mainly, the main thing that I'm trying to do is just make people enough aware of where to look to be able to find the information, to get the credibility so that they know that what I'm saying is the God's honest truth. And once they've established that, I want them on a collective to be able to move forward and come to a resolution that will last longer than 3.5 years, if you know what I mean, 1,290 days, where the breach happens, causing tribulation beyond hell.
Sorry, what are you talking about? Where the breach happened?
That's a biblical prophecy. For 7 years, the Antichrist comes up with a scenario that works for 7 years, and they make a pact with the Jews and take over Jerusalem. And what happens is after 3.5 years, there's a breach in the contract. And that's where the problems will lie. And if people are wearing these tracking chips or these ISO mark of the beast, my God, we're talking desolation of their soul. This is big.
Okay. Well, yeah, some of this needs to be translated into sort of language that people can understand a little clearer.
It's not a language that you're seeking. It's a whole library of information that needs to be defined to give the foundation to understand the language. And that therein lies my problem with communication, which I admit I have because of this.
Okay. All right, Cynthia. Well, I understand where you're coming from. I understand where you're going and what you're talking about now. So I at this moment, I'm not sure that we can really progress much more further other than just kind of getting this more convoluted for people. So let's put this out there.
Okay. One thing you can do.
Yes.
You can go to the science administration of just about any college and university and corner any professor alone to get the information. They all know. Not all of them. I shouldn't say that. The heads of the colleges and universities know. Okay?
Know that what? They're using your genome?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they may not know you, or I mean, that's pretty general. They're using, they've sequenced lots of people by now, zillions.
Exactly. But the original patent was done off of me, and it's well known.
Okay, fine.
It's just that it's in areas where you cannot get anybody to admit to it, where there is more than one witness.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, how old were you when this happened?
I was 33 years old.
Okay. So what you should do is you should send me whatever documentation you would like me to post on the page that I put this, along with anything else that you want known, and I'll take a look at it and decide whether to put it up there.
Here's what I need to do, because it's the largest case in documented human history, which you will find out. All I can do is send you a link, and it will lead you into more information. 600 billion patents. And
okay.
How I could possibly compile that any better than all the colleges and universities is beyond me.
Right. Obviously. Well, at this moment, I think people just want to verify you are who you say you are, etc. So let's close this down, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. I know my questioning has been rather strident in this case, but in order to get sort of a clear
It's
picture.
not your questioning. It's not your questioning. It's their plausible deniability that's causing the problem.
Yeah, I appreciate that. As always, something we deal with a lot. Okay, thank you very much, Cynthia. Let's talk again in the future and see where this goes. I will put this out there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Teen cancer investigation?
Correct. They said that I had a tumor in my right hip, and
Okay.
it was the Camara.
And at that time, I don't understand how you submitted to all these tests, so to speak.
Well, they gave me an MRI, and I could see that there was a huge mass in my leg and buttocks that needed to be removed. So I went in for a surgery to get it removed.
Okay,
voluntarily.
what year was that?
That was 1997.
Okay.
And that's when it came out in the news media as Dolly the sheep. And what they had done is they had created the Camara. I went through 4 surgeries in that year, from basically knee to waist, attached to the sciatic nerve, so they skeletonized horrific surgeries. 4 surgeries in 1 year, and that's when they came out with the cloning, etc. The clones came out as Dolly the sheep, and that was no sheep, that was me bloody on the table. And those clones is under, and the DNA sequencing and all the genealogy and patenting is under the name of Bree, B-R-E. Now, that's the first 3 letters of my last name. Now, I'm going to tell you, when you research this, there is a lot of plausible deniability going on here. And the plausible deniability is out there with misinformation, but you can find the truth.
Okay, so you believe, for some reason, that you're the only one this happened to?
No, absolutely not. I'm the first one it happened to. There's been millions that have followed in my footsteps. They're killing people all the time through the sinister use of my DNA. And if you go onto any gene card or website,
This is Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I am talking to Cynthia Marie Brewer. And Cynthia, why don't you give yourself your own introduction, since we're just meeting right now, and I will basically sit back and listen to you tell your story.
okay, I'll give you the precipice of it. My name is Cynthia Marie Brewer. I was born in Long Beach, California on August 2nd, 1964. I was the person that was taken to do the Human Genome Project that turned into the DNA sequencing and the gene banks from which all of society is being registered under. The patents held by it were held by the Secretary, or are held by the Secretary of Defense, William Cohen, and another individual that was the head of Harvard Law School. Last name is Boyer. And it's running 2/3 of the world's economy, so I find it to be quite pertinent to what is happening here and the future of humanity.
Okay, you say you were the person sequenced, whose genes were sequenced, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and you were the one selected. So was this a voluntary situation?
No, there was no noticed informed consent whatsoever is running off of those patents.
Okay, the patent for gene sequencing?
It was more than that. To back up a little bit and give you an idea as to what happened and why it happened, I will have to tell you a part that sounds crazy, but it is an actual fact. What they did is they wanted to know what portions of DNA controlled what portions in the human genome. So they took my DNA and they spliced multiple pieces and parts of different animals to different sections within the DNA, and they created a biologically functional chimera. It was taken out in 1997, and it had basically, it was a chimera with different animal pieces and parts connected to it. It was blind and it was deaf, but it was a living, breathing, biologically functional chimera.
What do you mean it was taken out?
I have an incision. They amputated the back part of my right butt cheek. I was used as a host for gestation for this chimera. And it was supposed to grow attached to the intestinal wall in the mesentery. And as a surprise to everybody, it popped up attached to my sciatic nerve in my right hip. And it was about 8 pounds, and it consumed my whole leg and buttocks, is my understanding.
Okay, well, how did you find out about this?
Colleges and universities who are well studied in what is going on and what has transpired notified me and sent me the information, and it matched to a T as to what my scenario had happened to me. The types of things that happened in the hospital, including multiple murder attempts, actually successes, but I kept coming back. I, for some reason, could not leave my body and stay there. I had to keep coming back until my purpose is completed here. That part sounds crazy, but it happened. Basically, what they have done is I have some sort of genetic deviations or variations that the average person doesn't have. It goes back to the Byzantium tribe. I am of the order of Saint Joachim, which is the Virgin Mary's father. And I have archaic DNA, what they call junk DNA, that tends to have immunities to things that the normal average person does not have from Cro-Magnon man, from the changes of man. What happened was they had passed out all the patents for all of the multi-level institutions, including the colleges and universities, and they had given me the plague, they had given me typhoid and AIDS and every other disease known to wipe out societies, and they held the patents for them. And when I kept waking up, they got into a bunch of fights because of the fact that it was one cure for all diseases. I have what they call a death receptor cell. It's created in the thymus, and it's called the T32 cell. For any of you that are studied in biology, this is where it came from. What I do is when I get a toxic invasion to my body, I fall asleep and my cells block everything until I pee it out and I wake back up again.
Okay, but from the sound of it, first of all, you went in for, I guess, some kind of
I was told that I had cancer and I had to go in to get a tumor removed from my hip. Some of this is hearsay, and some of it is, the hearsay seems to be documented by all the facts that surround the matter. But on the same token, parts of it is things that I have been told. I was asleep during what happened. So, well, actually I died and came back, to be more precise.
Okay, and let me say that today is Tuesday, July 12th, 2011. Let me also say that. Okay, well, when you're saying, though, that you were selected, how were you selected? Do you know that?
My understanding is that it was through interplanetary trading off of the trade pact with the Eisenhower administration. It was done through the Joint Trade Commission, and the ISO was involved, which is the International Standards Organization that does the barcoding. And it was world government that came together at the Carnegie Mellon Peace Palace. That this is important, Teresa. At the Carnegie Mellon Peace Palace, and all of the patents were passed out through all of the multi-level institutions, through the Uniprot Consortium, which is where the origin of the DNA sequencing and the gene banks were held. They were also held by J.P. Morgan and Chase and Goldman and Sachs and all of the major banking industries. And that is why 2/3 of the world's economy